I kind of know this might not be totally accurate. You have a 18-year-old kid behind the desk who has no interest in your macros whatsoever, and you say, hey, can I get double steak? He's just loading that up. Is it 4 ounces? Is it 6 ounces? Who knows? All right, guys, so today I want to talk about one of the issues with the if it fits your macros approach and thinking that you can just fit anything you want into your diet, especially during a diet period, if you are somebody who uses a lot of the nutrition labels that they'll see online or for restaurants. So I am towards the end of my cut here. So I am sitting at about 181, 182 pounds. I had a refeed yesterday and I am down almost 20 pounds at this point. Now, most of my diet is pretty boring. I eat most of the same foods every day, and I like the foods I eat, so I really don't have any complaints about it. But as many of you know, the whole if it fits your macros approach came out several years ago. Actually, at this point, it's over a decade ago. And it's not that it was completely new, but the term was new. The IIFYM crew, and then everybody came out as obviously Alberto Nunez eating Pop-Tarts and stuff like that. And the general idea is obviously extrapolated by some people to be a little bit to the extreme, right? People were saying, could I get my macros if I were to eat just whey protein shakes and candy bars and things like that? And you could lose weight that way. I don't want to get into a whole thing about the pros and cons to it, but I think it's pretty well established that at the end of the day, it's mostly about calories, right? And especially calories and protein in terms of a body composition effect, but that can really be taken to the extreme. And I genuinely don't believe that you'd see the exact same results just because you had macros matched. I will say I've come around a lot to that compared to when I was first getting into this in high school. I specifically remember on bodybuilding.com, there was a guy who said that he could lose weight just as well eating Snickers with the same calories as I think oatmeal and chicken breast. And as my, overly knowledgeable in my own head 16-year-old self, I thought this guy is an idiot. He has no idea what he's talking about. And in reality, he was actually probably fairly correct. Maybe not that if he only ate Snickers, but he could include Snickers and not really have much of an issue because, again, he was matching calories. So at the end of the day, yes, calories are most important. And then I would say macros in terms of how it's going to affect your body composition. I would really focus on how much protein, and then fats and carbs, you can kind of play around with that. But again, as long as you're not at the extremes of super high fat, like a ketogenic diet, or super high carbs and almost no fat, you're probably gonna be fine. So in terms of what I'm gonna talk about today, because if you were to do that, if you were to just eat, candy bars and whatnot, like I think even Matt Ogus had a series where he was losing fat on Chipotle, which is nowhere near in the realm of candy bars as far as something like quality of the food. I think Chipotle will be fine every day. It's meats, it's cheeses, vegetables. I think that'd be fine. But really how it should be utilized is if you're eating your normal nutritious foods every day, and then you want to sub in something, it's not too big of a deal. If you go out and you want to kind of allot a few hundred calories towards a piece of pizza or something, it's not that big of a deal. And if you are somebody like me who will weigh in most days, and I have my clients weigh in at least once weekly, and you are tracking that over time and you're not in a contest prep, I think you're gonna be fine with that approach. But you have to be careful if you're gonna go out to restaurants where, like, let's say you go out to even a place that's like a chain and they have the calories listed. So this would be like, let's say an Olive Garden, and you were to get a pasta dish with sauces and some cheese and everything like that. That can be wildly inaccurate. I mean, talking like several hundred calories or, 30, 40% difference in calories, because all you have back there is a chef just kind of doing, whatever they want for taste, even at a place like a Chipotle. I love Chipotle. I think it can be fit into a regular diet, but I kind of know this might not be totally accurate. You have a 18-year-old kid behind the desk who has no interest in your macros whatsoever, and you say, hey, can I get double steak? He's just loading that up. Is it 4 ounces? Is it 6 ounces? Who knows? Can I get cheese? Okay, that could be 3/4 of an ounce, or that could be 2 ounces. I mean, I've had massive variations in how much I get from people. And if you just go onto their little food log and write that in, you might think, oh, it's 800 calories, but it could be 600 and it could be 11 or 1200 calories. So that is something that's important if you're, and some of you guys are gonna know this and it's gonna be super obvious, but for people who are maybe a couple years in, sometimes I am surprised by what people don't know. Just because I've been doing it for so long, sometimes you forget some of the initial struggles that people go through where they wouldn't even think that. There's a girl I've known for a while who's pretty into tracking her diet, and she does it more for GI related reasons, but she has been tracking for years and years. And she just told me this weekend that she realized that when you have the meat on like the nutrition label meat of like, you buy some ground beef, that is the raw weight. And she was measuring it cooked. Obviously, cooked is going to have a lot of the water out. It's also going to have some of the fat out. It's also going to depend on what, how lean it is. So a 93.7 ground beef compared to a 70.30 ground beef, one is going to lose a lot more than the other. So she had no idea, and she was somebody who's tracked on MyFitnessPal for years and years and years. So sometimes some of these obvious things are actually not so obvious as some people. And I made an Instagram post just the other day, actually just last night, and had a lot of views, but I was surprised by some of the comments I got, and I thought maybe I just didn't make myself clear. So the post was, I was at the mall and they have Annie Ann's pretzels. And the post showed that on the website for Annie Ann's, it would show a 16-ounce cup of Annie Ann's fits 168 grams of these like pretzel nuggets. And somebody who I guess thought that they were a genius that day decided to tell me that I had an epic fail because I didn't realize that cup is a measure of volume and not weight. I'm like, listen, buddy, go look on the PDF that I posted, and it says in a 16-ounce cup, they can fit 168 grams of these nuggets in there. So the cup is 16 ounces, but the weight of the pretzels is supposedly 168 grams, 490 calories, and 5 grams of fat, which I knew immediately was total nonsense. So I actually brought it home before I had it, and I weighed it. And it was not 168 grams, it was 335 grams. So it was twice as much weight. And then other people respond, and this is why I'm saying, I don't know if I wasn't clear. I had other people respond, and they said, one person was like, oh, are you complaining that you got more? And another person was like, dude, just relax and eat it. And I'm like, you're missing the point. I don't care. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. But the point is that for somebody who's tracking calories, somebody who's dieting, they might go and, I want some Annie Ann's pretzels. Well, I've heard about this if it fits your macros thing. I can go online. I can look up the calories. Oh, cool. It's 490 calories, which is nonsense. Because even if it was 490 calories for the 168 grams, well, there was twice as much weight there. So it would actually be 980 calories. And even that, I don't think is totally accurate because it said in that 490 calories, it was 5 grams of fat. Dude, this stuff is like fried in oil or butter and then coated with all of this stuff. There's no way, if you look at my story, if you're one of the people who follow me on Instagram, if not, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, you will have seen that. There's just zero chance this thing had 5 or even 10 grams of fat. So I would literally say in that case, it is completely useless. Now, somewhere like a McDonald's, where it is so standardized and it's such a big company, I would imagine that you're probably pretty close. If you went to McDonald's and you got a hamburger and, or a cheeseburger, it's got one piece of cheese, and we kind of already know pretty well like how much is going to be in a beef patty, how much is going to be in a bun, how much is going to be in one piece of cheese. So you can probably get a very good estimate in that case, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. But once you go into these places that have oils added and sauces added, or the amount is not regulated and it's decided by somebody behind a counter, you really cannot trust that at all. And I'm not obviously saying anybody's doing anything malicious, it's just they don't care. Why would you care if you're just behind the desk working there? You're not trying to get this person's macros set. So as a takeaway, if you're bulking up, if you're in a gaining phase, it probably almost doesn't matter at all, because you can adjust as you go and it's not that big of a deal. Maybe you're a little heavy this day, you cut back a little bit. As you're dieting and getting leaner and leaner, that's when it's gonna be a factor. And even then, if you're in the initial stages of dieting or you've been doing this for a long time, I'm not saying you should freak out about it. Because again, if you're doing daily weigh-ins, you can see how your weight goes, you can adjust week to week, not that big of a deal. Maybe instead of being in a 500 per day calorie deficit that week, you end up being in a 400 calorie deficit per day. Not a huge deal, on average. And as you get leaner and leaner, it's going to be harder to account for some of these differences, okay? If you have to get down to 1,800 calories and you're really trying to plan there, for one, it's probably not the best to have some of these foods, right? You're gonna wanna be more satiated. You're gonna wanna make sure you're fitting in your fiber, your micronutrients, things like that. So it's probably not gonna be the best choice anyway. But if you are trying to be social, I would overestimate the calories in that case, and you have to be careful because it can end up really setting off your diet. And certainly if you're actually doing a contest, at that point, I think you probably shouldn't even be thinking about that sort of food. And you're probably not, because you're so hungry, you just wanna have foods that's gonna fill you up. So anyway, guys, I thought the post I made on Instagram was a fairly good post, but I saw some of those responses that I was a little surprised about. So I wanted to elaborate specifically on what I meant, but also where this can apply to your diet and how that's going to affect you if you're somebody who eats out frequently. Because if you are, this is something you have to keep in mind. And I've seen time and time again people who either hugely overestimated or underestimated their calories because they didn't know it had to be weighed a certain way. They didn't know that it was just an estimation based on what somebody's putting in there. So if this was helpful for you guys, go ahead and comment down below. It helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps grow the channel. Thank you to those of you who have either supported me on Patreon or to become a member on YouTube. So subscribe for more videos like this. And again, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Always appreciate a thumbs up. Thanks, guys.